Welcome back to Crossroads. We have got to tell you guys about the new book, The Black and Brown Faces in America's Wild Places. And we couldn't do that without having the author come all the way from Duluth this morning to be a part of the program. As high as gas prices is, I'm surprised you didn't do this interview by phone.
No, I come to the cities on a fairly regular basis.
Now, this book came out in 2006. It's an amazing pictorial of African Americans and all people of color in general who are out in America's wildlife doing some wonderful things. How did you come to do a book like this?
Well, I've been a wildlife photographer for about 17, 18 years, and I found that when I was in places that I traveled to do that stuff, Grand Canyon, Yellowstone National Park, whatever wilderness spaces, I found that I was like the only black dude standing on the rim of the Grand Canyon. You know, it's like, so those kinds of things got me thinking, how is it that there's so many black people in America, but they don't get out and visit their, what I call natural heritage, the things that come part of being an American. I'm not, you know, all America patriotic type person, but I think that as part of being an American, you inherit the wilderness spaces here. You inherit access to those wilderness spaces, and I just don't think that the average black person gets to those spaces as much as they should, and whether they realize that those spaces actually belong to them.
Now, what do we gain from going to the Grand Canyon? Because my husband and I were looking at the book, and he said, honey, we need to take our son to some of these places. I mean, that's the first thing that he thought about, because we've never been. Our parents didn't think to take us. What do we get from going to places like this?
Well, there's a sort of different sense of self, sense of place. When you go to a place like that, there's some peace and tranquility that's kind of hard to describe. It's something you really don't feel or understand that it's actually something that can happen to you until you go to that space. And then you feel like a different person. There's a certain amount of stress that just sort of melts away. There's a very a very clear way of thinking in that space that you can't do when you're in an urban space with all of the noise and all of the distractions. There's so much, there seems to me there's so many things vying for your time, you know, on the radio, commercial ads, television ads, billboards, blah, blah, blah. When you go into the outdoors, there's you can think sort of like a clear stream of thought that sort of allows you, I think, to be just a better person, a more calm, relaxed, soothed person. So psychological stuff. Yeah.
And how did you get to a career that allows you, for the past 18 years, to be a wildlife photographer? How did that get started?
Well, it was kind of that, finding that tranquility, that peace in that space is what made me realize that I wanted to make that a regular part of my life. And I have to admit that my love for nature really came from realizing my father was an alcoholic. He created a lot of dysfunction in the family house. And I found that when I went into those spaces, a lot of times my parents would take us on weekends. We'd go to a place called Hoover Reservoir, just north of town. And my mom would make home fries on a cast iron skillet and hamburgers and hot dogs and stuff. And then my brother, my father and I would fish. But a lot of times I just would spend a lot of time just roaming around the woods all by myself near the picnic area. And just that psychological peace and tranquility that I got, I was able to handle what was going on in the family home because I kind of like got de-stressed.
You had an escape.
Yes, exactly, a refuge. And it worked out for me. And so I realized that I could actually sort of psychologically heal myself by being in those outdoor spaces. It's a hard thing to describe, but when you're there, you go,
you feel it. I got it. And you can see it in the pictures. Scott, our director upstairs, has some photographs. And who is this gentleman and what is he doing?
That is Shelton Johnson. He is in that particular outfit. He is reenacting a buffalo soldier. Buffalo soldiers protected Yosemite and Sequoia National Parks back in 1903, I believe it was. And so they're some of the first acts of stewardship by African Americans. So that was before the Park Service was actually formed.
Wow.
And so he's a ranger there. That is me. Actually, my wife took that photo with my camera and gear up at Palisade Head on the shores of Lake Superior, and that was my photo for the book. That's Linnea Atlas Egerbretson, actually. She, at that time, she was doing some outdoor education outreach in the Denver area, but she lives in North Minneapolis now and doing some work here. That is the almighty Chelsea Griffey.
Yes,
she is an incredible woman.
She is a rock climber.
Oh yes, that woman is all power, all strength. She is awesome.
Wow.
And that is Daryl Johnson, I believe. He is Master Falconer. He's actually the president of, no, Daryl Perkins, actually. He's the president of the North American Falconers Association here in the United States. It's actually an international organization. That's Phaedra Pons with her daughters in the Fort Collins area, just teaching them that nature is okay, it's safe, it's comfortable, there's nothing spooky, scary out here. So she's passing that on to her daughters. And that is the great Hank Williams Jr. He lives in Rush City, Minnesota. And he is a black cowboy, and he is a big game hunter. And he is very good at what he does. Very nice man.
And, you know, you see these pictures, and it almost gives you a sense of new pride. Seeing the sister climbing the rocks, and the mother taking her kids out, and the big game hunter, and the buffalo soldiers. And that's what this book is all about. And there are hundreds more pictures like this that you have. But that's what this book is all about, is showing the black faces that are in America's wild places. Why was it important that you put it together?
Well, I wanted to try to give the gift of natural heritage to black or African Americans, that a gift that I received a long time ago. And I feel as though that most African Americans have not received that. They don't realize that those spaces actually belong to them, and they believe